versus Push the Lane with James Rauman and Nick Gallen. This weekend's LCS NA qualifier was awesome, Nick. Plan worked. You rigged the results. You got Marn into the Season 3. It worked perfectly. I saw the doc, Nick.
Don't even say Team Marn to me. Don't even. I'm so sad that they made it in.
Marn's
I'm like the only non-Marn fan in the office, so just not happy about it. But the Brunch Club made it in, so I'm happy about that. That's awesome.
The Brunch Club's cool because we saw Reflex grow up as a team, and Loud Immortus is awesome. Like, he is, you know, a really great guy, and they'd really struggled as a team for a long time. They didn't have the time to get their full practice schedule going. Reflex, eventually Legion, you know, broke up. It's a shame. Like, that was an awesome team. But to see some of their members still having success is really cool.
Yeah, we saw a lot of success out of them. DemonLol was rocking it on Azure Gaming. Unfortunately, they didn't make it. Dirtnap didn't make it either, and they had
Cloud9. Cloud9 not making it, that's absurd.
Oh my gosh, yeah, there's a lot of upsets there. But there was some really strong play. Team Fear, undefeated. Curse as well, undefeated. They were heavy favorites coming into the tournament. Not surprising at all that they did that well.
It's interesting about Fear. We were talking about it. Zuna in particular, he really struggled in the top lane.
Yeah.
And that was a big thing holding Fear back when Aframu was with the team. AD carry, he's kicked ass. He's looked very strong. I think he said it himself. There was an interview with him where he said himself that, you know, he's hopped around the number of roles and hasn't quite found his niche, but he feels really solid as an AD carry.
Yeah, and they brought on Psycho Sid, Psycho Squid at the tournament is what he was going by, and they're really good friends. They played a lot together, and they create an energy on the team that we haven't really seen. Zuna's just yelling, you know, we saw him on camera just yelling and screaming when they're winning, when they're killing, he's making calls. That's awesome. Tons of people are Zuna fans after this weekend, and it's well-deserved. He's an amazing player. He's found his niche, and, you know, he played really well.
Yeah, no, all of them played really well. Curse in particular was incredibly impressive. Yeah. They looked dominant. Voyboy is one of the best top laners in the world right now. And the game right now, top lane has such a huge impact because it tends to be you can have passive play and you can farm very easily into the mid game. It's not so much that the top lane snowballs after one kill anymore, which means that if you farm effectively, you're ready for those mid game team fights and you can take over easily, particularly because of all the tanky champions, the tanky DPS items. Warmogs is OP as hell.
Oh, Warmogs. Stack them. Stack those Warmogs.
It's just awesome.
Yeah, yeah, it's really good. There's a lot of exciting matches. You know, there's kind of a discrepancy in the skill between some of the top teams in the bottom, but we're going to talk about that in a later topic. But moving on, Season 3, we've seen the teams that are going to be there. We know the 8 teams, the 3 from old, Dignitas, CLG, TSM, they're in there with the new LCS teams. Who do you think is the strongest out of the group?
Well, there's no question the 3 teams that had already qualified, they've proven themselves throughout their team's history. Yeah. TSM, CLG, and Dignitas. Regardless of where they are right now, they've you know, shown in previous tournament history. TSM, I think, is the team that's really struggling out of the 3 of them. CLG looks really strong, dominant. They look like an international team. Dignitas does as well. TSM, maybe some practice issues, but we haven't seen them compete, so I'm not going to say anything. I'm going to hold back judgment on them. Curse, out of the LCS, the qualified teams, looks the best. I mean, they are just really strong. Again, it goes to that top lane. Nijaki as well looked really strong. His Rise play was just phenomenal. He was, you know, 2v1ing people and whatnot. Their whole team looks really strong. I think, honestly, top to bottom, Season 3 NA is awesome. You know, you saw all of the competitive play that weekend, and you can't make an argument that the NA scene doesn't look strong right now. You can't really judge without seeing the international play. I'm going to be like, after watching that awesome weekend and just say, oh, well, you know, the NA scene looks really weak. All of those OP items that they're getting, the NA teams without those OP champions, they wouldn't be able to do anything. All the foreign teams, they don't use the OP champions. No, that's BS. But they're really strong. Olaf is awesome. You know, Kha'Zix is awesome.
Yeah.
It's hard to say before they compete. I don't think any of them are pretenders yet. I think that Marn, potentially, GGU, you know, and Fear all have the biggest gap to see, you know, whether or not they're going to compete. GGU in particular, they've always been a team that they never lose, but they're never big winners. They, you know, when we expect them to win big, they always fall really short. They fell flat at IPL5.
Yeah, they sure did.
So we'll see.
Yeah, we'll have to see.
I think they all look good.
No, they do. But I think it really comes down to practice. We saw how good Curse did at LCS, the live qualifier this past weekend, and they admitted they've been practicing 10 to 12 hours each day. So we saw that practice come to life and how much that worked out for them. So really, Season 3, the teams that practice the most are going to win. Yes. And that's where I'm worried about TSM, actually, because during this lull right now where there isn't a lot of tournaments, so there's not a lot of things to do, TSM hasn't really been scrimming from what I hear. They haven't been practicing, they've been streaming a lot, and that's going to be a big issue for them going into these actual matches when they start up less than a month away. It's happening very soon. And if they're not practicing, if they're not getting it together, then they're going to fall short. And it's an entire season. You can't do poorly in the beginning and expect to do well later, make it in the playoffs or whatever the system's going to look like. And so they have to continue to be strong throughout, and it's going to be coming down to practice. And with that in mind, where's this practice going to be? Like, how are these teams going to be able to practice against each other? If they're going to be facing each other on a weekly basis, are they going to practice against these amateur teams that didn't quite make it into LCS? And if so, how good are those LCS teams?
Well, I think the amateur teams are really going to struggle, but the LCS teams, in particular the Season 3 teams, I think they're all going to be very strong. The only question is you don't have that good judgment of playing the international teams in international tournaments. It's going to be very limited international play, which means that you have to you have to know that you're good enough. And at what point do you know? Like that, I think that was a big problem with World Championships. I think there was a lot of practice put in by these NA teams. I don't think they just came to the tournament. We're like, whatever, it's $1 million. Yeah. I don't care. I think they put a lot of time and effort into these tournaments, and they just, were maybe surprised. They were taken aback because they're like, wow, that wasn't enough. What we put in wasn't good enough, and we thought we were going to be well. Dignitas thought they were going to be dominant that tournament. But I don't know. We'll have to see. Going up next, the Season 3 amateur scene. Yeah. What's going to be happening?
What's left, right? It's kind of a scraping the bottom of the barrel there. Yeah.
And it was an awesome tournament. We saw a lot of really great play. Yeah. However, it was kind of expected. A lot of these teams are potentially going to disband once it's done. Epic immediately disbanded. Cloud9 disbanded. Pulse, they dropped out of IEM Katowice, so it's
Katowice. I don't know. It's hard to say.
So a lot of these teams are dropping out, and I think it's it's very likely that a lot of these amateur teams are planning on just grouping up for big tournaments. And that means they're not going to be practicing all the time. That means they're not going to be growing. And really not being able to compete against the Season 3 teams just means that I feel like the whole amateur scene could die really quickly. And even though it was a very impressive tournament, the peak concurrent was 150,000, I think. So nowhere near the same draw as the professional teams.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or the other ones.
I'm concerned. They don't have as much ambition to practice if they're not trying to get into Season 3. There are still a lot of strong players out there, the teams that didn't make it into the Season 3 LCS. But I mean, there was a big discrepancy in skill. Like, there's a big separation between those top teams like Curse and the teams on the bottom like Falafel or even Azure, who's looking strong but still fell short. And if those teams are what's left, I'm scared for the NA scene in terms of skill, and it's going to trickle.
I'm scared for the international scene outside of the pros. I mean, for just amateurs in general. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what happens.
Yeah, moving on. Moscow 5 announced that they are now Gambit Gaming. So Moscow 5 is dead. I actually liked Moscow 5 as a name. I thought it was
a cool name.
It is pretty cool. So they're Gambit Gaming
like
now.
The Magnificent 7, the Moscow 5.
Yeah, it was a beautiful name. But we got a new name, Gambit Gaming, sponsored by Pringles. So that's really cool. Pringles is getting on this esports wave.
Moscow 5, once you pop, the fun don't stop.
That was terrible.
I know. Sorry.
But I think the big question is, was it a better choice for Moscow 5 to break off and become their own organization, or should they have maybe joined up with an organization that already existed?
Well, what organization would there have been? Na'Vi, potentially. Honestly, they've built this team up themselves. No other organization built them up. They don't need an organization to hop onto. They've already created their value. They've created their value for sponsors, which is shown by sponsors already joining with them. So they just need the infrastructure, and if they can get that going, that's great. And really, you want to see them succeed by their own merits, which is what they've done. They've put in the time, they've put in the effort. They're arguably the most dominant team of last season. Yeah. TPA winning the World Championship, but Moscow 5 all year.
They made the biggest splash, I think, out of any team in the world.
And so you want to see them reap the benefits of all of that practice and whatnot, and they're going to. So that's very exciting. That's what I like to see in the scene, and that's what's going to happen, hopefully.
Yeah, and
hopefully it spreads to other teams too.
And their manager Groove is a very professional
he's
guy.
Awesome.
He's really awesome. And with that, when you have strong management like that, and especially like leads on sponsors like Pringles and BenQ is sticking with them.
I'm glad they didn't join another.
Yeah, it's good that they probably didn't join another organization. They have the representation to be successful, and that's one of the things that a lot of these teams lack is sponsor relations and that sort of thing, but that's in place. So just run with it. See how far you can take it, and they're taking it pretty far.
Yeah, no, it's definitely a good thing. They're missing out on some salaries potentially that they could have gotten with a larger organization, but the growth potential is huge.
Yeah.
So lastly, guys, we have some cool tournaments coming up this weekend. You should follow them all. OGN Winter, we saw last week, Azubu Frost taking down Azubu Blaze. Those matches were awesome.
Yeah, and you called it 3-2, and
yeah,
I said 3-1 Frost, so
well,
congratulations.
we both thought there was going to be, a back and forth there. But yeah, Frost was able to win it in the long stretch.
Yeah, definitely. And then we have GPL as well, so continue to watch that. We're going to be casting some of those games this week and next week too, so make sure you guys check those out. The GPL stuff is always really fun to watch.
And I am Katowice.
Yeah, and Katowice. Who are you liking for this tournament?
I actually think Fnatic is the #1 team along with Frost. And I'm going to go out and say it's going to be Fnatic, then Moscow 5, then Frost, actually. So those are my top 3. The thing with Fnatic, there is some room to see what's going on with their AD carry, but so much of the game is decided by mid, top, and jungle. And Fnatic, they have that on lockdown. So do Moscow 5 and so do Frost. That's why those are clearly the 3 dominant teams. But Soaz in particular in that top lane looked really impressive. We saw before the Season 3 changes, they brought out the Kha'Zix. And, now Kha'Zix is just standard OP and everyone's like, wow, he just controls the game. So I really like them coming into it.
Yeah, I'm actually really interested to see how Curse does. They've been practicing so much, and it's the weekend right after the LCS qualifier, so they're probably still warmed up. They're
scared
still in good
about
shape.
Curse, though.
Yeah, we'll have to see. It's going to be a good gauge of Season 3 and what's in the store there. But
well, I think Curse is the team. They had disbanded, basically. They only had 2 members of the team left, and then Riot told them that they needed to pick up one of their old members, otherwise they wouldn't be allowed in Season 3. And so they're like, okay, we'll grab someone again.
Yeah, so it's going to be interesting to see how they do. It is scary. But for me, Azubu Frost, #1.
Yeah.
#2, Azubu Blaze. Korean dominance is going to be happening at this tournament. #3, Fnatic. I think they're going to come in. You think they're looking good. Yellow Star just got announced as their new AD carry, because of Reckless had to be benched because he's underage. So I think they're going to be looking really strong.
Yeah, no, it's going to be exciting. Guys, follow all of that action. OGN, we talked about it last week. Real quick recap. I have Sword 3-2 over KT Rolster B. I think...
I have KT Rolster B 3-1.
3-1?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we'll see. So we'll kind of a switch up there. But thanks for watching, guys. Make sure to comment. I enjoyed the funk. And this was a nice time. So make sure you send us all of your feedback. Twitter, Baroncast.
At Nick Allen IGN. And let us know what you want us to talk about next week.
Also, just talk about the topics yourself. So, just get the discussion rolling.
Okay, guys. We'll see you later.